Tasmina Ahmed-Sheikh.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Chairman. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. Can I start by saying I think we should dispense with the use of the word emotions, a word we've only heard from those speaking from the government benches in this debate, and talk about the facts in relation to this issue. This government's record on issues relating to women are at best lamentable and at worst fundamentally discriminatory. From changes to tax credit and child benefits to the current issue of pensions, this government's policies have adversely impacted upon women across the United Kingdom. Now, we know from House of Commons Library research that the measures announced in the budget last year will have a disproportionate impact on women, while individual proposals such as the Chancellor's rape clause, which would require a woman who has her third child as a result of rape to justify her position in order to avoid losing tax credits, are horrifying in their callous disregard for human rights. The issue we have before us today, Mr Chairman, is important as within this wider context it presents the government with an opportunity to now do the right thing by the women of this country and indeed the WASPI campaign. The government has rightly recognised that when it comes to changes which affect people's pensions, it needs to take a more measured approach in future and ensure both effective communication and a reasonable lead-in period in order that those who are affected can properly plan for retirement. It should therefore now take its own advice in this respect and act properly and fairly for all of those thousands of women who have been adversely impacted by the equalisation of the pensions age and the subsequent decisions taken in the 2011 Act. Because most of all, this is an issue of fairness. And as someone who's argued all of my life about equality for women, I absolutely agree with the principles behind the 1995 Act. This is not in dispute. I support equalisation of the pensions age. And I have enormous sympathy, we all should, for those who may not have been aware of these changes and are suffering hardship as a result. I cannot support the unfair manner in which these changes were imposed in the 2011 Act to the detriment of so many women in my constituency, Clockmanshire, Perthshire and Kinrossshire and across the rest of the country. They believed they had a deal, an agreement, an understanding even with the state, and the state has moved the goalposts. This is a failure in the policy of the government, a fundamental breach of contract, and it must take responsibility for it and bring forward transitional protection now. And I know that the government are capable of making sensible and reasonable decisions in this area, and that's why I wholeheartedly welcome the fact that in the 2014 Pensions Act, future reviews of the state pension should give 10 years' notice of these changes. The same principle should be applied to right the wrongs of the changes made in 2011. Because we know that some of those who were impacted by the 2011 changes received only around 5 years' notice of the changes which would impact them. Those with the largest increases of 18 months got less than 8 years' notice. Now, I'm sure we've all heard from constituents who have explained, often with heartbreaking detail, how this has meant that they were given insufficient time to prepare for their retirement. One constituent of mine said, "At present, I will not get my pension until I'm 66 with no warning. I will suffer true hardship and misery." This system has let this woman and thousands like her down, and the government must act now to make amends. Pensions are not a benefit, they are part of our social contract, and this government has broken the contract. I understand, we all understand that what we're seeking today costs money, but the government has a duty to do the right thing, not the cheap thing, when it comes to changing this sort of contract. Our duty must be to do what's right and then take the difficult decisions necessary to pay for it. We shouldn't start with the cost and work back from there. Politics is about decisions and priorities, and I'm here because I believe that getting a fair deal for these women should be a priority. To take another path would be demonstrating to the thousands of women watching today this government knows the price of everything and the value of nothing.